Hey everybody, Tom here. Today I don't have any gameplay to show you, so I don't have a gameplay video. Instead, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be talking about patch notes, but what kind of patch notes? Lamania release notes. So be aware, Lamania, things are subject to change, but I want to address something that's really important. There's a bunch of garbage in here that's like cool, but not really important. And then there's some actual important stuff. So the really important things, of course, war paint. Yeah, bears, wolves, they're going to get war paint. It's not quite dye, but it looks really cool. Check it out on the menu. Somebody posted a picture somewhere. But no, the most important thing is this thing: melee survivability changes. So the idea is that Sandstorm Games wants to make melee more survivable in Dungeons and Dragons Online, and I think that's a really good idea. So what are they proposing? The idea here is that you get a new feat when you hit level 21. So it's an epic only thing. So it doesn't help melee survivability in the heroics, only in the epics. And it's a toggled feat, so like a defensive stance sort of thing. It adds 5% competence bonus to maximum hit points, and an additional 5% for every combat fighting style feat you have to a maximum of 25%. The applicable feats are the single weapon fighting feat line, two-handed fighting, two-handed, two-weapon, and natural fighting. So every time you take one of these feats, you're going to be picking up an extra 5% life in epics. Pretty cool. On top of the additional 5%, caps out at 25%. So that's awesome. It's going to give people more health. There's a lot of differing opinions on the subject, so I wanted to give you guys my opinion and how I feel about that and about these changes. To start off, I think these changes are absolutely fantastic. If you look at what a lot of people need when they hit level 20 or 21 in a lot of epic stages, they need health. A lot of lower level players can actually do some stuff. They might have a decent amount of damage, but they often run out of health. People that are newer to the game, first life characters, that sort of thing, they just run out of health. And it makes it not very fun, especially when a lot of quests are significantly easier if you have a lot of past lives and you just happen to have a lot more health. Just so much more health. When I do epics on my main character, I start at like 600 and I just go up from there. But when you don't have, and it makes epics really easy. You get to epic elite, you walk in there and you're not dying to stuff. But when you happen to make a character and you start at level 3rd or 21 and you have like 300 health because you're playing a first life rogue, and you don't have gear yet, not very good. It makes it a lot harder. It also makes it for the end game experience. If you happen to have a lot of these feats, which most players happen to have, you don't have to deal with like instantly dying and stuff like Shroud. Like Legendary Shroud is sort of fun, but you get wrecked by stuff all of the time. Another thing that's also important, you know how in Babalish Saga, that final raid boss, when you have the giant, what do you call them, the shambling mounds come out, and they do the curse. Well, the curse reduces your hit points by 90% in elite. This is actually a positive 25%, which means that reducing by 90% off your positive 25% means you're not going to get reduced all the way. You only get reduced down to 25%. So you get to keep an extra 25% of your life, or I think you get put down to 35%, which means you don't instantly die to stuff as well. Very cool. Now, what are the penalties? A lot of people have been talking about, oh, it's like free health. You got all this free health, and you're gonna be so strong. You're gonna be able, you're always gonna die, and it's the worst change for the game because now everyone's game's gonna be too easy. Blah blah blah. You just get free health. There's no consequences, no downsides, only free health. Turns out there's actual consequences and downsides. 1. All spell and spell-like abilities that are affected by meta magics have their range reduced to touch range. You want to heal somebody because you're playing as like melee cleric? Well, if you want to use this feat, you gotta get in close. It's melee. You're a melee character now. The game says you are melee. So that means you want to heal a guy, you gotta get into melee. Double shot and range power are 0, which means you gotta get into melee. This is exclusive from range stances such as improved precise shot, archer's focus, Sharadi stances, and warlock blast stances, which means you can't even use any of the warlock stuff. That's amazing. The feat is exclusive from enlarge, can't enlarge stuff. It remains active while dead, and the feat can be used with other defensive and offensive stances in addition to rage. So you can rage while you have this. So it's pretty great. Epic defensive fighting. It's awesome. It makes it so that you have to be in melee. So if you are playing as a melee character and you want to heal somebody, you got to run over and melee and then heal them. Now, granted, it's not exclusively melee because you can turn it off at any time. So if you do need to back up heal or do something, you can turn it off, get out of melee combat, and start healing. But it's pretty good. I honestly think this is a really good change. So instead of talking about this in like terms that people like kind of generalize about, let's look at something interesting. Math. So this is math that you got right here. So you have the old system and the new system of your feats. So you've got your health. So let's just say you're a character and you got 300 health in the old system, and you're fighting against monsters doing 100 damage a strike. That means you die in 3 hits. That's not great. It's not perfect. But, you know, there's some adjustments that can be made. So where would you find monsters that do about 100 damage? That would be quests like Loads of Dust. Loads of Dust on Epic Elite monsters are going to be doing about 100 damage. So if you happen to be a first life character, you come in at 300 health, then you're going to be taking some damage. Let's just say you're a first life character, and instead of starting at 300, maybe you start at like 350. Well, if you start at 350, you're going to notice you're still dying in 3 hits. Or I guess it's 3.5 hits, which is effectively like having 4 hits to kill instead. Because the first 3 hits you lived through, and then now you're dying in 3.5 hits. So you have to get hit another time. Actually, in my example where I said 300, interestingly enough, any amount of these feats gives you 1 extra hit. So you go from 3 to 3.5. These technically always round up. I probably should have put the round function in here to make it cleaner to look at. But anyway, it basically rounds up. So that's pretty good. So if you have just even a little bit more health, you can just say 350. And again, I'm looking at low health numbers. I'm not talking about the high health numbers, okay? I'm talking about low health numbers, people that are just coming into epics. If you go 350, yeah, you've got 3.5 hits to kill, so it takes the monster 4 hits to actually kill you. Well, when you bump it up to having 2 of these combat feats, now you're at 402 health. So you're going to be taking 5 hits to kill, which is fantastic. Needing 5 hits to kill gives you 25% more survivability over your previous counterpart. That's fantastic. That's amazing. So, you know, the damage, the focus there is really good. And so this is going to help out a lot of new players. Players are now going to get 1 extra chance to not die. Now, you can still get critically hit. You know, that does happen. So if we look at, like, if this was bumped up to, like, 200, of course, right, instead of being critically hit, then what happens is, again, you see the same thing. A character with these 2 of these feats can now take 2 critical hits. How does it going to impact your character? What if you've been playing this game for a long time and you've got a lot of health and you got a lot of starting stats? You start at 600, but you also start on Yielding Sentinel, so you actually start at 1100. So what you're going to notice is that your character that starts at 1100, if a monsters are doing 100 damage, is your character is at 11 hits to kill. So 11 hits to kill, it's pretty big. You got to hit 11 times. But now with these new changes, you're going to get bumped up to 1375 if you happen to have all 4 feats and this ability active, which is going to give you 13.75 hits to kill, or 14 if you round that up. So you're going to get 3 extra hits to kill before you actually die. It's good, it's powerful, it's potent, but most importantly, you're going to notice it's a bit of a difference. So going from 11 to 12 hits to kill is a very small change. It's less than 10% change. Then going from 11 to 12 is actually, 11 to 12 to 13 is an even smaller change. It's again less than 10%, and then there's no changes, and again a lower than 10% change. But if I went something like 400 health, which is what a lot of people start out as, going from 4 to 5 hits to kill is huge. Going from 4 hits to kill to 5 hits to kill is amazing. That means it's like a 25% increase in your survivability. So for people on the lower end of the spectrum, they're going to get a lot more use out of this because it's going to give them more survivability. So what this change does is it makes things a lot more accessible. Now, obviously, if we change the damage, so let's say you're playing on Epic Normal, where the damage is around 40 per hit, right? You're going to see the same increases. Now you're going to go from 10 hits to about 13 over at the top end. So again, for like normal difficulty versus the end game, and this is not including, also this is raw damage, so we're talking about raw damage, not including physical resistance rating, other stuff like that. So obviously if you have some physical resistance rating, it gets a little bit nicer. But what does all of this mean? Well, what it means is that if you have to be playing as a melee character and you're going to be low level, or not low level, I keep saying low level, if you're freshly reincarnated, you're not very strong, this is really going to give you a little bit of that backbone. So what about all those players that are playing in the end game? You know, they're like, oh, up there, and it's going to make Reaper like super easy. Well, just to start out, Reaper 10 has been cleared on pretty much all the content. So it is possible already. These changes aren't going to help people. If people haven't been doing Reaper 10 yet, these changes aren't going to help people do Reaper 10 because it's still that tough. You do need to have the right groups and the right people doing things. There are people that argue that it's not difficult because as long as you have like the right characters with the right gear, you can get through it. But I would still argue that things can go really wrong in Reaper mode really fast, and it does take some know-how and some actual gameplay. Now let's just change it up though. So we're going to say, okay, well, you're going into, I don't know, what's a super fun quest? Let's say you're doing Epic Elite Shroud. Cool. Well, in Epic Elite Shroud, monsters do 1,200 damage. You notice, wow, with 400 health, you don't have enough to stay alive. Well, how much health could you have if you're doing it? My Druid right now is 1,500 health. So my Druid dies in 2 hits. Still going to die in 2 hits. Man, not good. The monster damage is pretty high. Now, granted, I do happen to have some physical resistance rating, so I actually can reduce this. I don't actually take 1200. I take about 700 damage per hit. So, still dying in 3 hits. But what you're going to find is that even especially at the end game, this change in health is actually not going to help you in the scenarios where it's the most dangerous. This is 3 hits to kill. This is 3 hits to kill. So I'm still going to die in 3 hits regardless of the conditions of, oh, do I have a lot of physical resistance rating? Do I have like a little bit more health? That extra health is not going to save me in a lot of those scenarios when the monsters are hitting just so hard. So in things where you're doing quests on Reaper 10, quests that are going in on elite level raids, you're still going to be getting one shot all the time. So I wouldn't say that this is the greatest change because the one shots are just going to happen. So melee, still do be careful. But overall, I think this is going to be a good idea because it's going to help players ease into stuff. So now begs the question, why do we need to do this for newer players or First Life players? There shouldn't be playing elite difficulty. I mean, obviously, if my character has like 350 health and the monsters are doing 100 damage a strike, going from 4 hits to 5 hits, sure, that's going to give them more survivability. But why do we even care? Because they shouldn't be doing that in the first place. Well, the answer is simple. When people play this game, they don't do it in a vacuum. They play and they group with other people, especially once you hit epic difficulty, because epics are more confusing. There's more stuff to learn. So why not go join a group with somebody? And if you happen to just join a group and you're tagging along and you're having some fun, it sucks when you die nearly instantaneously. And having a little bit more health is going to be a bit of a barrier, or a bit of a boost to all these players. Now, granted, this only affects melee characters. This does not affect ranged. So if you happen to be playing different types of characters, pretty much all fighters are going to be sitting up here at the 4 feats. Barbarians, some of them are going to get to 4 feats, although I'm going to be honest, I've seen a lot of barbarian builds recently that don't actually finish off the two-handed fighting line, just because it's very feat expensive. So you may not even get this far on barbarian. Druids might get this far. Druids are also pretty feat starved. Taking all natural fighting feats is fairly expensive. And it also makes some changes as well. Bards, they now have reduced range. So remember, it's not for free. You have to take feats. But again, it's going from that survivability. I think it's going to be really good overall. I think it's going to be good for the game. I think it's going to be good for new players. And I hope to see some of this stuff come down the pipeline. Because like I said, if you're playing an epic normal quest where the monsters are doing like 40 damage, you're going from, if you have 350 health, dying in 8.75 hits. So 9 hits. Now you're dying in 11. So again, it's going to make people a lot more survivable, a lot tankier, and I'm looking forward to it. There's other stuff in these patch notes. You can take a look at them if you want. One of the biggest things is damage and healing values of numbers are now reduced to 1 instead of 0, which means all of those on-hit effects, like a weapon of plus d6 fire damage, now will not do 0 damage. And I'm assuming that also means Vampirism doesn't heal for 0, which would be very, very, very powerful. Also, Kensai Power Surge is getting unnerfed, so you will see, or changed so it doesn't destroy prowess, so you're going to see an update in the Vanguard guide when that comes out, which is kind of cool. And, yeah, and there's that. So anyway, so this is all the stuff I got here for today. There's some other cool stuff, like Spinal Tap now goes up to D11, which is fantastic. I'm glad they've made some changes like that. But yeah, that's pretty much my opinion there. I think it's going to be a good change for the game overall. I heard a lot of people saying that it's like a Band-Aid fix. And I don't know what that term means, because Band-Aid fix means that it is something that is like meant to be temporary, but this is not a temporary fix. This is definitely a good change. You don't get a lot of health if you're a First Life character going into epics and you don't have the gear already, which means you get wasted all the time if you try to join a group that's doing anything other than normal or hard. Now, you could say you should just do normal and hard, but what if you want to join a group? What if you're playing with your friends or something? Building health is not just as easy, so this is going to lessen the blow for those players. And like I said, for the players that already have a lot of the experience and a lot of the time, let's just say right now that your character, you've got all the past lives, you start with 800 health, then yeah, it's going to give you extra health. So you go from 20 hits to kill to 25. But in theory, this time frame of 20 to 25 is much greater. You can heal yourself in that time frame. You can dodge. You can get out of combat. You've got so much extra time already that you shouldn't get to 25 hits to kill. But you'll have time to save yourself before 20. But when your health is a lot lower and you have to react a lot quicker, you have to deal with these situations in a much shorter time frame. So it's important to keep that in perspective, and I think that these changes are going to be very, very good. Plus, going to make it more exciting just in general. I think it's going to be cool to be able to play a healing cleric, and when you play healing cleric, it's like, wow, I'm going to get in there, I'm going to heal these guys, I'm going to do everything, but I'm also going to be melee, get in there, do some melee action, got the extra health, but it means you have to melee heal, and it just changes the way you think about stuff. Playing Ranger or Paladin, you want to heal a guy? Boom, you got to either pop out of the stance or you got to just run over to him and just lay on hands and then heal him, you know? So, anyway, that's my take on it. I hope you guys enjoy this. Next, we'll have a gameplay video next week when I actually get some gameplay because I haven't played it all. So, there's that. Anyway, if you like what you saw, make sure you like and subscribe to my video. Watch me on Twitch. If you didn't know, I have a Twitch channel where I stream, where I get a lot of my gameplay clips from. And I'm also going to get better video recording. Yeah, apologies about the way it looks in like the videos and stuff. It will look cleaner when I have some stuff set up, and I'm changing a couple things. So next week's video is going to look a lot cleaner than this week's or last week's gameplay video. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. Have a good time.